Good morning and welcome to the Updog, where we're lighthearted and we have a lot of fun. And our objective is to help make understanding politics simple. My name is Tisha S. Waddell. I am one of your hosts. I'm a former city council representative for the third district in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm seated with Mr. Elmer Floyd, a former who is also a host, a former House representative for the 43rd district in the state of North Carolina. How you doing, Mr. Floyd?
Good, Tisha. I must admit, I talked with Larry. You're getting better now each day. I mean, each time we have our program, that you don't steal my title.
I'm
So
trying to
he
keep my
he
job.
I know, but he mentioned to me that he also talked with you about that too. So I'm pleased, Tisha. I really am.
Good deal, good deal. Mr. Floyd, we've had a lot going on in our community over the last week or so. There's a lot to discuss, but before we get into that, let's make our announcements. What announcements do you have for us today?
Well, one that I have, Tish, is that if you want to utilize anything related to the federal government, you have until May the 8th to get real ID. And if not, if you want to fly from here to Atlanta, you might, have to use some form of rental car in order to make that travel trip,
Or
successfully.
have a passport. Or have a
Yes.
passport. If you have a
So
passport, you might be okay.
you might be okay. And I know last week that I told you that at the Dogwood Festival, I wanted to go so I can do the line
Yes.
dance. But my sister told me that I was out of step. Is that now they have boots on the ground?
Boots on the
So I'm
ground.
waiting for her. I'm waiting for her to show me that dance and what goes along with that. So I want to apologize to those individuals. I was not able to do that because I would have been out of what they consider today when they have boots on the ground. So
Absolutely. Well,
whatever
Mr.
that
Floyd,
is,
you got to learn boots on the ground. And when you learn, you got to teach me. So tell your sister I said thank you for keeping us current.
yeah, that's in New York now. So I don't know, but I'm looking to see that because I can see how those ladies jumps on the floor. They be moving to you,
And you
and
got
us
to look.
men,
You
you
don't just go
trailing.
get your fan, but I'm gonna go get me a fan so I can every time when they say where the fans at, here it is.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's good. I mean, I just want to apologize to you, and also, if I may, teach, I want to congratulate you on getting your sidewalks completed now, and also getting you two traffic circles, and possibly getting a gas station on one of our corners. So I just want to congratulate you on the economic opportunities
Rose Hill
and the
Road is
finishing.
popping, Mr. Floyd.
Yeah, but it's popping teeth, but you have a lot of congestion. When we look at Cumberland County as a whole, like in the western part of the county, what they do when they have traffic congestion, they widen it. And in our community, they shrink it.
Right.
So, but I just want to commend you on getting that project completed there.
Well, Mr. Floyd, I wanna go back to our conversation about the Dogwood Festival. Apparently, I was gonna say something a certain way, but
Hmm.
I'm gonna monitor what I say today. Apparently, our mayor is very upset about the gun violence in our community, and rightfully so. And his response, Mr. Floyd, has been to call an emergency meeting based after the most recent incident of shots being fired at the Dogwood Festival. And in his press release, he indicated that he was going to call a special city council meeting on Monday, May the 5th, immediately following the city council work session to present a plan to hear additional recommendations from and discuss options with the city council. So key elements that will be considered in this conversation are going to be a possible declaration of a public state of emergency, which would include a citywide 9 p.m. curfew for unattended minors, stiff penalties for parental noncompliance, restrictions at large gatherings to include ban on masks and backpacks at city owned property or city sponsored events. Now, I want you to keep in mind, these are the same people. Never mind. Expanded camera network with license plate readers, facial recognition, and other AI driven tools, augmented security presence to include contracted partnerships with private security agencies, additional gates and perimeter fencing at Festival Park and similar venues, and stronger incentives for public cooperation to include increasing the Crime Stoppers reward to $5,000. Mr. Floyd, what are your thoughts, your immediate thoughts?
Well, when I really looked at that, I thought about the I guess I forgot where it was at. One young lady that was walking down the street and was picked up by ICE,
Okay.
and then I think she went to Louisiana, I believe it was.
Okay.
That's how I see that now. Right now, the city has over 150, my understanding, over 150 cameras throughout the city. They already have license tag readers because that's how they're able to solve a lot of crimes. And then again, all of this is good, Teach, but who is going to enforce that? You about 50 police officers short. 50 police officers short. So who is going to enforce this 9 o'clock curfew? And where is the money is going to come from to increase the number of license tag readers you have? Wherein that to do the cameras, I'm sorry, Tisha, I mean, but I don't think many of us can climb them poles to put them cameras up. So somebody's going to have to pay the cost. But I think that to do this, when we look at crimes, everyone has their concerns. Some people have this, some people have that. But mine when I look at crime, I look at crime through through code enforcement,
Mm.
wherein that you allow certain areas to deteriorate. By allowing these areas to deteriorate, sometimes it's just like one deacon told me in church. He said, "Now, don't forget now, is that everybody in church haven't lost their ways, and so they just spill their ways over into communities that become surprising,
Yeah.
but they doing the same thing across the street, so they just carry it over there."
I want to remind our listeners that the idea of a curfew came up last fall, not last fall, the fall of 2023. And the Fayetteville City Council overwhelmingly rejected the ordinance that was presented by Police Chief Kimberly Braden, then Police Chief Kimberly Braden, where he was recommending a ban um, on people under the age of 18 from being able to gather in public spaces from midnight to 5 a.m. on weeknights and 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. on weekdays. This is a much more restrictive, a much more restrictive ban that's being proposed by the mayor. He's moving from midnight or 1 a.m. to 9 p.m. And he was a part of this conversation in September of 2023 when this was rejected by the Fayetteville City Council. So I'm wondering what new information has been made available today that changes the dynamic, aside from the fact that we're getting ready to go to an election cycle.
Because it deal with a different part or a different activities within our community.
Hmm.
You know, the
Because
Dogwood
it's
Festival,
downtown.
and it's the Dogwood Festival. So there is a urgency now to address this concern. Again, Tish, who is going to enforce this? I
Well, and the
think you sent
question
me a
then was, and that was one of the questions then, and you even had dialogue with the Department of Social Services saying, when you pick up these minors, then what? Because this has to be, we need to remember as this dialogue moves forward, this has to be a concert of a conversation. It can't be just one instrument playing, because you have to have all of the sounds coming together in harmony. If you have the sheriff's department, they're required to enforce this. The police department would be required to enforce this. Social services would have some hand in this, because what do you pick up an 11-year-old and take them to the prison, or do you pick up an 11-year-old at 12:30 and there needs to be a social worker on call that you reach out to, that you now take this unaccompanied minor to? And when it comes to holding parents accountable, so if you've got um kids who essentially have, like, I'm gonna give you a prime example. I have a person in my life who has a 15-year-old son. Her 15-year-old son is notorious for running off, and when he runs off, I lost you, Floyd. I don't know if it's still streaming or what, but I have lost you. So I'm going to continue talking in the hopes that it will just reconnect. But when he runs off without their permission. So now if you find him out and they have not permitted him to be out, now what? Are they held responsible? There's a lot, just like when we talked about the gun situation, and we talked about how Senator Applewhite's bill in theory was a good idea. I'm a pause. When we spoke about Senator Applewhite's bill being in theory a good idea, but there being a lot of holes, I'll say the same for the conversation that the mayor wishes to have on May the 5th. In theory, it's a great idea. And not even maybe a great idea. I'm not even going to say that, because I think that when you begin to take away people's civil liberties, you're encroaching on some really, really slippery territory. And we've already, as Floyd talked about, with the inclusion of the real ID, we're seeing our rights change in front of us very subtly, but in fundamental ways. Many of us can remember when you could board an airplane, you could walk right up to the gate agent and walk right in without all of these extra pomp and circumstances. And now, after 9/11, we've lost the right to be able to do that. So as we continue to move forward, we continue losing our fundamental rights. And there's something inherently um, disturbing about that, especially when it's at the hands of people who really don't understand what that all means for us. So I'm not sure. We've lost Mr. Floyd. I'm going to try and see if we can get him back on, because he is an instrumental part of this conversation, and I want to make sure we have him online. So give me just a moment. I'm going to mute and give him a call. Well, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. In the meantime, the other item that has come up for conversation with the Fayetteville City Council is the idea of tiny homes. This is not a new topic. This has been an ongoing conversation. It's been something that's been discussed at least dating back to my time on council. I recall myself and Kathy Jensen taking a tour when we were, I can't remember which one of our cities we were in, but we were in a different city and we were looking at some of the solutions that they have put in place. I think it may have been San Antonio. Mr. Floyd is calling me back. Y'all hang on just a second. Mr. Floyd hung up on me. He froze on his end. He's working on coming back in. But she and I went and we toured a property that serves the homeless community in a way where they sought to reintegrate successfully these members back into their community. And we saw some really interesting ideas and brought that information back. And a part of that conversation did stem off into tiny homes. So I am happy to hear that this is an ongoing conversation. Now, it's interesting because as the conversation is being had, there are, of course, going to be concerns about where this will be located, where this project could potentially be located. And we all fall into these these patterns of not in my backyard. And so as we're looking at this dialogue and it's ongoing, let me just give you some backdrop. There is a consideration for the city of Fayetteville for establishing a pallet village, which is a community of small prefabricated shelters to provide temporary housing for individuals experiencing homelessness and mental health challenges. This initiative follows the closure of a local Salvation Army shelter and aims to offer a safer alternative to encampments, which is interesting because if you all will recall, the city and the county cleaned up most of the encampments, but we are beginning to see some areas where there we can see those tents beginning to pop up again. So on April 28th, the Fayetteville City Council voted to discuss the Pallet Village proposal at their next work session. Councilman Mario Benavente opposed the motion due to its pairing with an anti-panhandling signage proposal, but expressed support for the pallet shelters themselves. This is interesting because I have also noticed the uptick of panhandling, even though there is an ordinance in place that prohibits the passing out of a vehicle or receiving into a vehicle any item when you are in a roadway. So I can see why this is something that would be why signage would be a necessity because the ordinance has just been abandoned or ignored altogether. Interestingly, also in terms of this panhandling signage this anti-panhandling signage. I don't know if you all remember or not, but I had remarked some time ago about having seen a sign at the intersection of Rose Hill Road and Ramsey Street. And this sign was an anti-panhandling sign, and it was the only one that I had ever seen of its kind, and I have not seen it since. So after I saw it that one day, it seems that it was immediately removed, and once it was removed, there was nothing else put back up. So interestingly enough, um, that coming up makes sense to me because apparently it was in the works already. So we have a comment from Peter that says City Council set Chief Braden up. They beg him for a solution, then attack him for the results. Braden said they would not be taken to the jail, but that they, FPD, had not communicated with social services to have a standby relationship. That is my recollection also, Peter. I do remember that being exactly how that played out. And I recall it being a scenario where the parties that needed to come to the table just had not yet been brought to the table. But still, in response to the tiny homes, Councilwoman Brenda McNair, chair of the Council Homelessness and Mental Health Committee, has been a proponent of this initiative, emphasizing the need for dignified, non-congregate shelter options. She and Councilman Malik Davis visited similar communities in Tampa, Florida, managed by nonprofits like Catholic Charities. I will tell you when you make these visits. So kudos to Malik and to Brenda. When you make these visits, you get to see what actually fundamentally works and what is just chatter. The design is the pallet shelters that are insulated, lockable units that range from 70 to 120 square feet, which can be assembled in under an hour and are designed for crisis housing. The recommended plan includes 50 one-person units, so 50 one-person units with communal bathrooms and laundry facilities. Some units would be ADA compliant. This suggestion is that they would be located on city-owned land, either on Eufalia Street, the former Salvation Army lot on Russell Street, and Alexander Streets, or near property near Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Park on Blue Street, or and a combination of all or. Mr. Floyd is calling me back. Y'all hang on just a second. Mr. Floyd is still restarting his computer. He has given me permission to continue moving forward with the program. So we'll just keep talking, and when he joins back in, we'll catch him up to speed. So those locations do pose some, they are some conversation pieces because of course you're looking at either in the footprint of the Civic Center, you're looking at near the landfill, or you're looking at the Blue Street area near the Martin Luther King Jr. Park, all of which have some pros and some cons. There's never going to be a perfect placement for housing for unhoused people because there's a lot that comes with housing unhoused people. But as this conversation continues forward, some things that have to be considered are zoning and permitting, who's going to manage it, and then again, those challenges. So, cost, security, neighborhood acceptance, management oversight, and the city does aim to address these issues through careful planning and community engagement. It sounds to me like this is something that will be moving forward based upon the tone of this conversation as it's being reported. McNair is emphasizing the importance of involving Cumberland County and neighboring municipalities like Hope Mills and Spring Lake because homelessness does affect a broader demographic than just the city that you see the people living in. She's been quoted as saying, "We need to work together as city, county, and community to address this." And listen, even if this village doesn't move forward, she plans on advocating for exploring non congregate sheltering options that provide immediate relief for those in need. So kudos to Brenda McNair. We don't often get to talk about her that much. So it's nice to see that she's moving this forward. And it's good that as we're discussing her, is something that's in a positive light. Additionally, kudos to Malik Davis because it says something about your willingness to be educated when you will go off and instead of just using these opportunities like National League of Cities and these other training opportunities as an opportunity for R&R and vacation, to actually go and do your job and be educated about what opportunities exist that you can bring back into your community. So kudos to them both for that. In addition, we've talked about the curfew situation. I just want to double back on that and say, I think we all need to be really watching that very closely. As this conversation plays out, we need to ask a lot of questions and do not allow your fear of what's happening in this community to cause you to just arbitrarily sign over without a fight your rights as a citizen in this community. This is the people who are brandishing weapons are not all minors. Minors are being adversely affected, yet it's not all minors. If we look at the pattern of gun violence in our community, we will note that it is not just those. It's not reserved just for those who are 18 and under. So this is a very limited approach. There's something undertoning it that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I would definitely recommend that we all ask a lot of questions and offer a little pushback where this is concerned because I don't see this being the highest and best usage of our resources or the best fix for what we've got going on. I'm gonna say this because I do believe that we have people who listen to our podcast who never show their face. But I will say to our elected officials, do your due diligence, ask a lot of questions, and don't just buy this blindly as a solution. I believe that who we can count on to really stand up for the rights of these younger people are going to be our people like our elected officials like Mario Benavente. So I hope that he will be the voice of reason in this situation and present some challenges or some pushback on this. Now, I mentioned the market house to you guys. I talked about how it is long overdue for them to remove the writing around the market house. And then I was met recently with an article that indicated that there are some repairs that are coming to the market house. Now, Mr. Floyd did speak in our pre-show conversation about what this really means for the citizens who oppose the market house. He's calling back, y'all. Hang on just a second. Okay, so Floyd did have a lot to add to the conversation as far as the market house is concerned. Because we are at that point and because he's still not back yet, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up for now. But I'm going to ask that you tune back in later. Listen, this is a great opportunity for me to say this again. We are always looking for people who are interested in sponsoring our podcast. Even if you don't want to necessarily sponsor the podcast, but you're interested in investing in the podcast, we're open to having a conversation with you. We would love to make it back into a studio setting, but we're not going to listen. The reality is, we're not going to pay to be in a studio setting until we have enough going on to justify us doing that out of our own pockets. We see our viewership, it looks good on our end. We see that you guys are watching, we're beginning to get the engagement. The conversations are coming together. We might not be everybody's cup of tea, but we certainly do give you the information that you need in order to be able to understand what's going on in your community and to make wise decisions about how you want to spend your vote, how you want to invest your time, and to understand how they're using your resources. So we definitely recommend that you consider that. It would eliminate some of these technical glitches because we're not engineers and we're not producers. We're just informational. And so, if you want to help us get seated back into a studio, or you want to help us be able to bring on an engineer, consider sponsoring or consider advertising with us. We will definitely have that conversation with you. Mr. Floyd did indicate that once he gets everything back up and running, we will decide when we're going to come back and finish out this show. We've got really great information, some information that you really don't want to miss. And I'm going to address some of the things that we talked about last week. So make sure that you make your way back when you see both of our faces pop back up. We'll give you a little heads up that we're coming back in. And even if you can't catch us live, make sure you go back and watch. But until then, we are going to just pause, not end, and we'll be back later.